Another Brick fan with a BrickHeadz review. This is from Lord of the Rings. This is Gandalf the Grey and a Balrog. This is set 40631. It was released in January 2023. It has 348 pieces and cost about $20 when it was released. This is one of 3 Lord of the Rings BrickHeadz sets that have been released this year. It's great to see new Lord of the Rings sets coming out. And this one is based on the battle between Gandalf and the Balrog in the Mines of Moria. Both these BrickHeadz look really good, and this Balrog is probably the biggest BrickHead I've seen to date. So let's get these built, and then we'll take a closer look at each of the finished BrickHeadz. Here are our 2 finished BrickHeadz. So we have Gandalf the Grey here with a staff and of course his long sword here. I think Gandalf turned out really nicely, and then this Balrog is just a really large BrickHead. It's tall, very wide with the wings that we have here in the back. Those do actually move back and forth. Lots of additional like flame type look around him. I really like this face. So we'll take a close look at each of these BrickHeadz, starting with Gandalf. Here is Gandalf the Grey. Of course, this was from the first Lord of the Rings movie, Fellowship of the Rings. He later became Gandalf the White, which I think is the ranking of the wizards. So Grey and then White being the top, I believe. Regardless, he looks really good with this gray beard here. He has a staff, of course, and then this is his elvish blade over here. Gray robes with a brown belt, it looks like, around the side. I like the hair, kind of all just unkept maybe, not really cut very well, just kind of wild hair. He's got the robe that goes over his hand, so it represents a long sleeve. The robe slopes away here in the back, so it's actually built on the side as well as in the back. As you can see here, there's in some of these corner slopes to form the bottom of the robe, which I thought turned out nicely. Once again, the hair is all nicely detailed or bumpy, lots of different types of slopes being used here. The hand is, of course, in the forward position here for him to hold his staff. And the build beyond that is pretty much the same on both sides. I like the hat done with these rounded pieces here, and then it looks like it's a pointed hat that's been crushed down on top. So a very old hat, let's say. Very old and comfortable hat for Gandalf. Now I did review Frodo and Gollum earlier, and Frodo has this same sword piece, so this same sword mold. As I pointed out in that one, these swords are not the same size. Frodo had a short sword and Gandalf had a long sword. But Lego only has the one mold and probably didn't want to make a shorter mold just specifically for Frodo, or a larger mold for this particular BrickHead. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Balrog now. As I mentioned earlier, I think this is the biggest BrickHead that I have personally built. Very wide with these very long, I don't know, horns or ears, whatever you want to call them. I love the use of the yellow here for the eyes of the Balrog, and it's nice to see these printed differently. And the positioning of these is kind of interesting to see the smaller dots kind of facing into each other. Most of the time they put the eyes facing the same way. I love how they did the mouth. So there's a little yellow back behind there, and then they use these slopes with a slant on them, and then a kind of a tooth piece up above here, the triple tooth piece up here, which was pretty cool. Has a whip here in one of his hands, so a hand on each side, both facing forward. There's a combination of flames all done in these trans slopes, as well as some plates and another brick back here. The wings are quite large with like these spikes on them. And they actually are on a clips and a pole piece here, so they do move back and forth. There's a long tail here, kind of built in sections, once again with the yellow and red indicating the flame. You see all the flame look on his head here as well, going from the top of his head down his back. Both wings are, they're mirror images of each other, but built on either side here. You see more of the detailing on this big, large horn on the side, and then more flame down here on the bottom. So once again, a very large, very detailed Balrog. Now he's all in black with these, fire highlights, so you will get a lot of dust collection on this. But overall, I think it's just going to be really cool as a display BrickHead. Great to see these classic Lord of the Rings characters in BrickHead form. Makes a lot of sense to pair these two up, since there was a big battle between these two in the Mines of Moria, where everybody believed Gandalf was killed in order to save the rest of the party. The Balrog just turned out fantastic. Gandalf is a pretty standard BrickHead. I mean, there's nothing super unique or special about it. Looks good, and I think it's recognizable as Gandalf, but nothing particularly unique about how Gandalf was built. The Balrog, on the other hand, has a lot of unique features around how the wings are done, all the big wide horns or ears, whatever you want to, I think they're probably a horn of some kind, and then all the flame that's all over them, the yellow eyes as well. So overall, very nicely done. Hope you've enjoyed my thoughts on this BrickHead set. I'm going to get started on my next video. And until then, happy building. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe to see more of my content. I've left a link to my BrickHead review playlist up here on the screen.